There was no marriage, your grace. I am sorry to be blunt, but you have come a long way, and you may as well have it in one piece. Josiah Cruz said it from behind his own desk, without getting up, which was the first thing Gareth noticed and the last thing he forgot. I stood in Netherland Church on the 9th of May in the year 11, Gareth said, at 7 in the morning, and was married by license to Selina Marsh by your own vicar, with your own parish clerk holding the book. So you have written 3 or 4 times. Crewe folded his hands. The vicar died in the December. The river came into the vestry in the January following, and the chest stood under 3 feet of water for 2 days, and the register for that year came out of it in a state I would not describe to a gentleman. The parish clerk went to his daughter at Kendal in the year 12 and died there. And I have here, he moved a paper an inch, delicately, with one finger. The reply of the diocesan registry, dated the 3rd of March last, to my own inquiry, which states that no transcript of the register of the parish of Netherland for the year 11 was ever received. I have the license. You have a license, your grace, which proves that a young officer went to a surrogate and swore an allegation. It does not prove that any ceremony followed it. Half the licenses issued in this county are never used. Crewe smiled, and it was not an unkind smile, which made it worse. You were 19 days from sailing. You were a lieutenant with £60 a year and no expectations whatever. Nobody, then or now, would have thought the worse of you for changing your mind on the church path. Gareth stood in the middle of the floor and leaned on his stick, because there was nothing else to lean on. 8 months. That was how long it took the Duke of Camberholt to find out that nothing said to him in that parlor was the shape of the truth, and that the one person who could have said otherwise had been within 10 miles of him the entire time. When it reached him at last, it would cost him more than the war had. He had been 11 weeks getting home. He had come off the packet at Falmouth on the Tuesday, and had been 3 days in a chaise with his leg up, and the knee that a piece of a wall had gone through at the siege had swelled to the size of a loaf, and he had not slept since Exeter. Where is she? Your Grace. Mr. Crewe, where is Selina? Josiah Crewe looked at him for a moment, with an expression of genuine, comfortable regret. Mrs. Bicknell, he said, is at the Grange. She has been married 11 months. Her husband is a very good man and a good deal older than she is, and he took her mother's house out of the mortgage on the day of the wedding, and there is not a soul in this parish who does not think she did well. The clock in Crewe's parlor ticked. 11 months, said Gareth. 11 months in September. She waited 2 years and 4 months, your grace, which is longer than most, and she waited on a name in a return and a letter from the registry that said she had never been anybody's wife at all. Crewe rose at last and came round the desk, and it was clear he intended to put a hand on the Duke's shoulder. You are home, and you are Camberholt, and there are 200 families who will be glad of you. Let it lie. There is nothing in it now for anybody but grief. The door opened behind them. Uncle, the man is waiting for an answer about the... She stopped. Gareth turned round on his stick, and it took him a moment because of the knee, and so he had a full 2 seconds of hearing her voice before he saw her, which he had not had in 3 years and 2 months. Selina Marsh stood in the doorway of her uncle's parlor in a gray pelisse with a basket over her arm, and she went absolutely white, and did not drop the basket, and did not make one sound. Neither of them moved. Then she set the basket down on the chair by the door, quite carefully, the way a person does when they have decided that their hands are going to behave. "Hello, Gareth," she said. It would be 8 months before the Duke of Camberholt understood what had been done to the two of them, and by whom, and how long it had been going on, and what it had cost her every single day of it. By then he would have stood in the middle of a county ball, in front of 400 people, and said something to that woman which no money on this earth could buy back. And she would have got into a public coach by herself with £9 and gone off to settle the whole thing with her own 2 hands, without asking him for one thing, which was exactly what he deserved. But that was February, and this was the 22nd of June, and Gareth stood in a parlor with his hat in one hand and his stick in the other, and could not think of one word in the English language. "Selina," said Crewe, "this is not the moment." "No," she agreed, "it is not." She did not look at him. "Gareth, are you able to walk as far as the gate?" "Yes." "Then come as far as the gate." It was raining a little. She went out ahead of him down the flagged path and stopped by the gate-post and turned round, and he saw her properly for the first time in the grey light, thinner and older than 3 years, and with her chin exactly where it had always been. "Say it," he said. "I would rather have it from you." "I was married on the 4th of September last year to Mr. Bicknell of the Grange. He is 51. He is a good man, and he has been good to me and to Kitty, and I will not have one word said against him in my hearing, by you or anybody." Her voice was perfectly steady and going faster than it should. "I waited. I waited 2 years and 4 months. In the January of the year 12, your name came into a return of officers dead at the storming, and I did not believe it, and I wrote to the regiment, and the regiment did not answer for 5 months, and then answered wrongly. And in the March, I had a letter from my uncle's hand out of the diocesan registry to say there was no record anywhere in England that I had ever been married to you at all. There is a register." "There is no register. It came out of the water in pieces. I have held it, Gareth. I went into that vestry myself in the February of the year 12, and I turned every leaf of it that was left, and the 9th of May is not there, and neither is April nor June." "Then the certificate. He gave you a certificate, the old man in the porch." "I have not got it," said Selina, and something went across her face that he did not understand for another 8 months. "I have not got it. I have never had it since that morning." The rain came on harder. 3 years, Gareth said. "I wrote to you every fortnight for 3 years." Selina Marsh, Selina Bicknell, looked at him then in a way that took the whole of the rest of his life to answer. "No, you did not," she said. "You did not write once." He had left England a lieutenant with £60 a year, a cousin twice removed from a dukedom he had never expected to see the inside of. The cousin's son died of a fever at school in the year 12. The cousin himself lasted 14 months after that. The letters informing Gareth that he was the Duke of Camberwell reached him at Lisbon in the September of the year 13, 4 days before the wall came down on him at the siege, and he had read them lying on his back in a shed with his leg in a box of sand, and had thought, quite clearly, that it was a great joke against somebody. He came home to 11,000 acres, a house with 41 bedchambers, 200 families, a knee that would not bend past a right angle for the rest of his life, and a stick. The knee was what it was. The surgeon at Lisbon had made a good job of a bad thing and had said so plainly, "You will keep the leg, sir, you will walk on it, and you will not run on it again, and if anybody offers you a course of waters, you may tell him from me that the water has not been discovered that mends a joint." Gareth had taken it better than most people expected, and a good deal better than his valet. He could walk 2 miles. He could ride for an hour and pay for it in the evening. He could get up a staircase without help if nobody stood at the bottom looking encouraging, which was the one thing that could still make him savage. None of it was the difficulty. The difficulty was that there was nothing whatever he could do. He had it from his own attorney within the week, and the man was decent enough to say it in one sitting, instead of 3. If the marriage of the 9th of May took place, Your Grace, then Mrs. Bicknell is your wife. The second ceremony is a nullity, and it can be declared so by the consistory court. That is the whole of the law, and it is simple. The difficulty is entirely proof. I was there. You are an interested party, so is the lady. The attorney counted it off. The officiating clergyman is dead. The parish clerk is dead. The register is destroyed. I have seen it, and it is destroyed. The diocesan registry has written twice, over the registrar's own hand, that no transcript for that year was ever received from Netherland, and the license proves nothing but that you meant to. There was a second witness, her sister. Kitty Marsh signed the book. The attorney looked at his hands. Then Your Grace had better ask Miss Marsh, he said, because I called on her on Tuesday, at your instruction, and she came to the door and looked at my card and shut it. Kitty would not see him. She had been 17 on the 9th of May in the year 11, a thin brown girl who had stood in the porch at 7 in the morning, holding both their gloves and crying, because it was the most romantic thing that had ever happened in the parish of Netherland. She was 20 now, and she lived at the Grange with her sister, and in the whole of that summer, Gareth saw her 4 times and she left the room on 3 of them. The 4th was in the lane by the smithy, where there was no room to leave. Kitty. Your Grace. Kitty, for the love of God. And she had looked up at him with a face like a person holding a door shut against a wind and said, "Don't, please don't, not yet," and gone past him almost at a run. Selina, meanwhile, went on exactly as she had gone on for 3 years. That was the thing that undid him by inches all that summer, not grief but competence. She kept Bicknell's house. She kept his accounts, since his eyes were going. She was at the school on Wednesdays and at the sick club on the first Monday of the month. She sat in the Grange pew on Sundays with her husband's arm under her hand going up the aisle because of his gout, and she never once in public looked across at the Camberholt pew, not one single time, in 11 weeks. He heard her, though, at the church door in August, when a woman he had known since he was a boy said, in that carrying whisper the kind-hearted use, that it was a great pity about the poor lame Duke, and that he would find it very hard to get a wife now. He walked out of a hospital at Lisbon on that leg, ma'am, said Selina Bicknell, and 11 weeks later he walked into my uncle's parlor with his hat in his hand and stood up the whole time. I would not use the word lame where he can hear you, and I would not use the word poor at all. He has 11,000 acres and better manners than most of this parish. And she took her husband's arm and went out to the carriage. Sergeant Dobbs arrived at Camberholt on the 3rd of September, having been written to twice, and having walked the last 19 miles, because he did not care to sit inside a coach. He was 54, built like a door, and had carried Gareth out of the ditch at the siege on his own back. And he stood in the middle of the great hall turning his hat round and looking at the ceiling with deep suspicion. They never give you all this for the leg, sir. They gave me this for outliving 2 better men, Dobbs. Sit down. I'll stand, sir. Sit down. I want to ask you about the post. Dobbs sat on the extreme edge of a chair worth £90 and listened to the whole of it with his jaw getting harder. And when Gareth had finished, he put his hand inside his coat and brought out a small black book with a strap round it and licked his thumb. 31, he said. What? 31 letters, sir. I've got 'em all down. He turned the book round and pushed it across, and Gareth saw a column of dates in a big careful hand going back 4 years, and against each date a penny or 2 pennies and a set of initials. You never had a farthing on you, sir, not once in 3 years, so I stood the paper and the sealing wax and you paid me at the quarter, and I put everyone down because if I hadn't I'd have been out of pocket, and I'm not a rich man. 9th of May year 11, that's the 1st. 22nd of May. 5th of June. Every fortnight, sir, near enough, all the way to the December of the year 13 when you couldn't hold a pen, and I wrote it out for you and you signed it left-handed. Gareth looked at the column of dates for a long time. You carried them to the post yourself. Every one, sir. Lisbon mostly and Oporto twice. Same address every time and I could say it in my sleep. Miss Selina Marsh at the house of Mr. Josiah Crewe, Netherland. Dobbs shut the book. Sir, she never had one of 'em, did she? No, said Gareth, she did not have one of them. He drove to the receiving house in the market town the next morning with the little black book in his pocket, and asked the keeper, who had been in that shop 22 years, who signed for the Netherland foreign letters in the year 11 and 12. Mr. Crewe's man, your grace. Mr. Crewe took all the Netherland bag, being the agent and the postmaster's brother-in-law both. And there were foreign letters, from Portugal, addressed to a Miss Marsh at his house. The keeper rubbed his chin for a while. There'd have been foreign letters, your grace, over them years. There'd have been a good many. Would you swear to it? And the man looked up at him with real regret, and said the sentence that Gareth carried about for the next 5 months like a stone in his boot. No, your grace, he said, it's 3 year. I couldn't swear to a one of them, and I won't say I could. He stopped trying to see her at the end of September, and she noticed. And that was the first thing that passed between them in 3 years that was not pain. It was not nobility. It was arithmetic. Every time the Duke of Camberholt was seen within 50 yards of Mrs. Bicknell of the Grange, 40 people found something to say about it by Thursday, and every one of those 40 things landed on her, and none of them landed on him. So he stopped. He went the long way round the green. He sat in his own pew and looked at the east window like a man being fined for looking anywhere else. And in the 2nd week of October, Dobbs came up to the estate room with a folded paper and a face of enormous unconcern. There's a receipt come, sir. A receipt for what? Your niece, sir. He put it on the table. Mustard and vinegar and a thing called comfrey, and it says to have the cloth as hot as you can bear it and then hotter. There's no name on it. There was no name on it. There was a small clear hand that Gareth had last seen on the flyleaf of a prayer book in the year 11, and a postscript that said, not a cure. Nothing is. It will let you sleep on the bad nights, which is worth having. He used it. It worked. He never acknowledged it, and she never mentioned it, and Dobbs, who had carried it from the Grange kitchen door and knew perfectly well who had put it in his hand, developed a diplomatic deafness that lasted the winter. Josiah Crewe began in the 3rd week of October, and he began where such men always begin, which is at the tea table. He did not say one improper word. He said that he was in a most painful position. He said that his niece was a good girl who had suffered a great deal, and had at last got a settled home with an excellent man, and that he could not sleep for thinking what would become of her if a great person took it into his head to unsettle it. He said, to 3 separate ladies in 11 days, that his grace's feelings did him credit, and that he was very much afraid they would ruin her. By the 1st of November, 2 families had left the Grange off their card list. On the 9th, a woman who had known Selina since she was 6 looked past her in the street. Gareth learned that from Dobbs and put his fist through the panel of a door, and then had to send for the joiner, and the joiner told the village, and that did not help either. Crewe called at Camberholt on the 11th of November. He came in smiling. I have come to be useful, your grace, which I know you will not believe. Say it and go. Withdraw the suit. Crew sat down without being asked. You will not win it. You have a license, an old soldier's account book, and a shopkeeper who will not swear. Against that there is a destroyed register, 2 dead witnesses, and the registry's certificate under seal that no transcript exists. Your own proctor has told you what I am telling you, and I dare say he has told you more politely. You took her letters. That is a remarkable thing to say to a man in his own person, said Crew, entirely unruffled. Prove it, and I will go to jail and thank you. You cannot, because it is not true, and because it is 3 years ago, and because the man at the receiving house has already told you he will not swear. He picked a thread off his knee. There is one other thing, and then I shall take myself off. If this ever does come into a court, you will want the little sister in the box. Gareth said nothing. Was 17, said Josiah Crew gently, and she is not a strong-minded girl, and she never was. If she is put up there, she will be asked a great many questions by a proctor who is paid to ask them, and some of the questions will not be about the 9th of May in the year 11, and I do not think she will enjoy giving the answers, and I am quite sure her sister will not enjoy hearing them. He got up. I say that as her guardian and as a man who is fond of her. Good morning, Your Grace. He was at the door when Gareth spoke. Crew, what did you owe Bicknell? For 1/2 of 1 second, the man's back was very still. Then he said, £3,200, Your Grace, on 2 bonds, and he forgave the whole of it as a wedding settlement out of pure good nature. And you may ask him yourself, for he will tell you so with tears in his eyes, and went out and shut the door softly. The cause was heard on the 26th of November, and it took the court 50 minutes to be rid of it. The proctor for the Duke of Camberholt produced the license and the surrogate's allegation. He produced Sergeant Dobbs, who was excellent, and whose black book was admitted, and then explained away in 4 sentences as proof of nothing, but that a man had written letters. He asked for the second witness, Miss Catherine Marsh, and had to tell the court that she had been cited and had not appeared and was not compellable in that court on that day. And then the registrar's certificate was read. That the register of the parish of Netherland for the year 1811 was destroyed, and that no transcript of the said register for the said year had been received into the diocesan registry, and that the said registry contained no evidence of any marriage between the parties. The judge was not unkind about it. He said that he had no doubt whatever that the Duke of Camberholt believed every word he had sworn. He said that belief was not evidence, and that a marriage in this country is proved by the book and not by the heart, and that the suit must be dismissed for want of proof. Costs were given against Gareth, which he paid the same afternoon, and which came to £160, and which he thought about for a long time, £160, to be told in public that the 9th of May in the year 11 had not happened. He came out into the street, and it was already dark at 4 o'clock and raining, and Dobbs was holding the horses and had the sense to say nothing at all. Selina had not been in court. Bicknell had forbidden it, and she had agreed, which Gareth learned afterwards was the only order the man had ever given her in his life, and the only one she had ever taken. But there was a note at Camberholt when he got home, on the hall table in the small clear hand, and it had come by hand and not by post, because after that year she never trusted the post with anything again. It said, I am told what the court said today. I want you to have this in writing so that you cannot argue with it. The 9th of May happened. I was there. I have never once doubted it, not in the 3rd year, not when the registry wrote, not on the 4th of September when I stood up in my uncle's parlor and married a good man because I had nothing left to stand on. A court that has never met either of us has said that a book is missing. That is all it has said. Burn this. S. He did not burn it. The invitation to dine at the Grange came on the 9th of December, in a big, shaky hand, and Gareth read it 3 times before he believed it. Mr. Bicknell was 51 and looked 60, and had the gout in both feet and would not be helped out of a chair. He had made his money in corn and did not pretend otherwise. He had a good cellar, a bad ear, and the driest turn of speech Gareth had met since he left the regiment. They ate at 5. Selina sat at the foot of her own table and said perhaps 40 words the whole evening, and did not once look up the length of it, and Gareth was so conscious of her that he could not afterwards remember one thing he had eaten. When she went out, Bicknell pushed the decanter across and said, "Now then." "Sir?" "You'll let me talk, your grace, because I've been getting it ready for a fortnight, and if you stop me, I shall lose it." He turned his glass round. "I married her on the 4th of September in the year 14. I was 50 and she was 23, and I knew what I was doing, and so did she, and neither of us has ever pretended anything else to the other, and I'll say that once in this room and never again. She has kept my house and my books and my sister's temper for 11 months, and she has never once been anything but straight with me." "I know it." "You don't know the half of it. I'll give you a piece." Bicknell set the glass down. "Every 9th of May, since I've known her, that woman walks to Netherlyn Church in the morning and sits in the porch for an hour and comes home. In 4 years she has never told me why, and I have never once asked her." Gareth found he could not speak. "I'm not a clever man, your grace, but I'm not a fool either, and a fellow who asks a question like that is asking for a lie. So I let her go, and I have the horses put to for 11 o'clock in case it comes on wet, and that is the whole of my contribution to the business, and I'm not proud of it." "Sir, I've not finished." He drew a paper out of his coat. "This is with my attorney, and there's a fair copy for yours. If ever it's proved that she was married on the 9th of May in the year 11, I shall not defend the suit. Not a word, not a day's delay, not a penny of costs. She'd be your wife and never was mine, and I'll not stand in a church door holding on to something that isn't mine to hold." He pushed it over. "There. Now I'll have my one thing in return." "Anything." "Don't make her a byword in the trying," said Bicknell. "You've a great name and a long purse, and you can go on for years, and every year of it she'll be the woman that 2 men are pulling at in the newspapers. If you can prove it, prove it. If you can't, then let her be, and I'll keep her comfortable till I die, and she'll be a widow with a house of her own and her sister beside her. And that is not nothing, your grace, for a girl whose uncle sold her to me for £3,200. The clock ticked. "He told you that?" Gareth said. "He never told me a word of it. I worked it out in the spring, and I've been ashamed ever since, and there's not a thing I can do about it now except be decent, which is a poor sort of penance for a man of my means." Bicknell reached for the bell. "The carriage will take you round by Netherlyn. There's something wants seeing to at the church, and my wife is going to see to it, and it is going to take her about 10 minutes. And I shall be sitting in that carriage the whole time in full view of the road, and if anybody in this parish wants to make something of that they may come and say it to me." She was in the porch when he got there, in a dark cloak, with the lantern on the bench beside her. They did not touch. They sat on the stone bench with the whole width of the porch between them and the rain coming off the yews, and for the first minute neither of them said anything at all. "He is a better man than either of us," said Selina at last. "He is a better man than me. I do not know about you." "Don't." "Selina." "Number, listen, because we have 10 minutes and I have had 3 years." She had her hands folded in her lap. "I want you to stop, not because of the county and not because of him. Because I watched you in that street in November after the court, and you were the color of a dead man. and you paid £160 to be told that the best hour of my life did not occur, and you will do it again in the spring, and again the year after, and it will eat you out from the middle, and it will not bring the book back. There is a way. There has to be a way. If there were, my dear, said Selina, I would have found it in the year 12. I went into that vestry on my knees in February with a candle, and I turned every leaf that was left, and I have thought about nothing else for 3 years. The rain came down. 10 minutes, she said. That is what we have. I am going to use them to say one thing, and then I am going to get into that carriage and go home to my husband, and you are going to let me. Say it. You wrote to me every fortnight for 3 years, said Selina Bicknell, and I never had one of them, and I want you to know that I do not require the letters to believe that you wrote them. I never did, not for a single day. Kitty came to Camberholt 8 days later, on foot at dusk, with no bonnet. Gareth had her brought into the estate room and put her by the fire, and did not ask her anything, and she stood turning her hands over one another for a full minute. I have done something, she said. Kitty. I have done something, and I have had it 11 months, and every day I have got up and thought today, and then I have not. Her voice went up. Gareth, she is my sister. She is the whole of my life. If I say it now, do you know what it does to her? Do you know what it makes her? Kitty, whatever it is. The dogs went off in the yard. Then a gig came round on the gravel, and a man's voice said something cheerful to the groom, and Catherine Marsh went the color of paper and was out of the far door before Gareth had got his stick under him. And by the time he reached the passage, there was nothing in it but the cold coming in off the court. Josiah Crewe stayed 40 minutes, on a state business that could have been settled in a letter, and drank 2 glasses of Madeira, and was charming throughout. The county assembly at Marl was fixed for the 14th of January. On the 10th, Gareth sat up until 3 in the morning with a decanter, and instructed his attorney to carry a proposal to Mr. Bicknell of the Grange, and the proposal was that Mr. Bicknell should name a figure. Any figure, in money or in land. He had it back within 2 days, unopened at the second fold, with 3 lines in the big shaky hand across the outside. I think you had better have this again. I have not shown it to her. I would take it kindly if you would not make me into a man who has to. But it was Selina who kept his letters and his accounts, because his eyes were going, and it was Selina who had opened the bag on the Thursday morning. And so she had read the whole of it in her own parlor, with the housemaid laying the fire, 4 days before the ball. Gareth did not know that. He walked into the assembly rooms at Marl on the 14th of January on his stick, into 400 candles and the whole of the county, and saw her across the room in grey silk with her husband on her arm, and she looked straight through him, as though he were a window. Josiah Crewe found him by the card-room door at about 11 o'clock, with a glass in his hand that was not his second. She read it, you know, said Crewe. Read what? Your letter to Bicknell, the one about naming a figure. Crewe was watching the dancers. She keeps his correspondence. His eyes are bad. It came in the Thursday bag, and she opened it herself in her own parlor with the maid in the room. He sighed. I thought you would rather have it from me than wonder all evening why she will not look at you. There is a version of that night, in which Gareth put down the glass and went home. He went across the room instead. She was standing by the 3rd window with 2 other women and her husband in a chair beside her, and the dancing had just stopped, and the room was as full of talk as a room can be, and about to go quiet in the way rooms do. Mrs. Bicknell, will you give me 2 minutes? No, said Selina. 1. No, Your Grace. And Gareth, who had been 11 weeks getting home on a ruined leg, and had paid £160 to be told that the 9th of May did not happen, and had drunk 4 glasses of somebody's claret, and had just been handed a knife by a man who had been sharpening it since June said it. I had understood you to be practical, ma'am. The talk went out of the nearest 20 feet. You were practical enough in the 3rd year, said the Duke of Camberholt, and I did not suppose 800 a year would offend you. I supposed it might only be short. He heard it land. That is the part he has never been able to get round. He heard it land, and there was a full second in which he could feel every single person in that room understanding it, and he stood there in the middle of it with his stick and his glass. Selina did not flinch, and she did not color. Then you and my uncle have understood me in exactly the same way, she said, and he has had 3 years' start of you. She turned and put her hand under Bicknell's arm to help him up, because his feet were bad, and there was nobody else close enough. And Bicknell got up on his own. Gareth has never forgotten the effort it cost him, and stood there swaying slightly in front of 400 people, and said one sentence, quite quietly, without any anger in it at all. You've made a liar of me, Your Grace. I told her you were not like the rest of them. Then he walked his wife out of the assembly rooms at Marle on his own 2 ruined feet, the whole length of the floor, and it took them a long time, and nobody in that room said one word until the doors had shut. Gareth was at the Grange at 8 the next morning and was not admitted. He wrote 4 letters that week, and they came back unopened. He wrote to Bicknell and got no answer at all, which was worse. He stopped drinking on the 16th of January, and has hardly touched it since. What Selina Bicknell did next, she did entirely alone, and he did not learn one word of it until the 4th of February, and when he did learn it, he had to go out of the room. On the 17th of January, she wrote to a proctor at Wexbury, not her husband's man and not the Duke's, and engaged him in her own name, and paid him a retainer of £5 out of her own money, being the whole of what she had except £4 and some silver. On the 18th she told her husband what she intended, in his book-room, with the door shut. Bicknell said afterwards that it took her 4 minutes, and that she never once sat down. On the 19th she took the 8 o'clock coach to Wexbury, inside alone with 1 bag. Wexbury is a cathedral city of 9,000 people, and the diocesan registry is in a stone building on the north side of the close, with a stove that does not work. She was there when it opened on the 20th. She asked for the transcripts of the parish registers of the Archdeaconry for the year 1811. The clerk told her, civilly, that the Netherland transcripts for that year were not there, that this had been certified twice under the registrar's own seal within the last 12-month, and that the matter had been to a court. She said that she would like to see the transcripts for the whole Archdeaconry for that year. The clerk explained that the transcripts were bundled by deanery, that there were upwards of 1,100 skins for that year, that they were tied in bundles of about 40, that they were kept in a loft over the muniment room, and that it was not done. She said that she would pay the searcher's fee. The fee was 2 shillings and 6pence a day. She paid 4 of them. She was in that loft from 9 in the morning until the light went, on the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd of January, with a shawl over her shoulders and her gloves cut off at the fingers, untying bundles and retying them, 1 skin at a time, in the cold. The clerk, who told Gareth the whole of it in February and would not take a shilling for the telling, said that she did not once ask for a fire and did not once complain of anything, and that, on the 2nd day, He brought her his own bread and cheese, and she thanked him and ate it and went on. She found it at about 3 in the afternoon on the 23rd, in the fourth bundle of the Deanery of Crowborn, which is 11 miles from Netherlyn, and has nothing whatever to do with it. One skin, folded twice, in a dead man's hand. The transcript of the register of the parish of Netherlyn for the year 1811, marriages, christenings, and burials, signed and dated the 28th of November of that year. Sent in 5 months early, with a covering line at the foot which the old vicar had had no notion would ever matter to anybody. Sent thus early, being unwell and not certain of the spring. May God keep this parish when I am done with it. It had been filed under Crowborn, because the covering letter had come up in the Crowborn bag, and the clerk of the year 12 had put the skin where the bag came from, and had then died in the same year. And there it had lain for 3 years and 2 months, 11 miles from a woman turning over a burnt register on her knees with a candle. Marriages, third entry from the foot of the leaf. The 9th day of May by license. Gareth Ansel Verand of this parish, bachelor, lieutenant. Selina Marsh of this parish, spinster. Witnesses, Catherine Marsh, John Purfleet, clerk. She did not shout. The clerk said she sat down on a bundle of the Deanery of Stonefold for about a minute with the skin in her 2 hands, and then got up and asked, in a perfectly ordinary voice, what was the proper way to have it examined and exemplified under the registrar's seal. It cost her £1 11 shillings and 6pence, and took 2 days. On the 26th of January, Selina Bicknell of the Grange, in her own name, by her own proctor, at her own charge, commenced a suit in the consistory court of the Diocese of Wexbury against Thomas Bicknell, gentleman, praying the court to pronounce the marriage solemnized between them on the 4th of September in the year 1800, and 14 null, and void by reason of a prior subsisting marriage. She told nobody at Netherlyn. She came home on the 28th on the outside of the coach, because she had 11 shillings left, and gave the difference to a soldier's widow at the Wexbury Inn, which is a thing Gareth found out 4 years later from somebody else entirely. The citation was served at the Grange on the 3rd of February at 10 in the morning. And at 4 that afternoon, a boy came up to Camberholt on a pony with a note in a big shaky hand which said, in its entirety, "Your Grace, my wife has sued me. Come at once and bring your hat, for you will want something to hold." Bicknell had the citation on the table and the exemplification beside it, under seal, with a green ribbon through it. "Read it," he said. "I've read it 11 times and I still get to the bottom and start again." Gareth read it standing, because he could not have sat down. The 9th day of May by license. Gareth Ansel Verand of this parish, bachelor, lieutenant. Selina Marsh of this parish, spinster. Where did she get it? Wexbury, the loft over the muniment room. Bicknell's mouth moved. 4 days on her knees in the cold untying bundles, your Grace, at £0.5 a day, with £4 in her purse and a soldier's widow to keep, and she never told me what she was going for. She told me on the 18th what she meant to do, and she told it me standing up. And I said, Selina, if you lose this, you are a woman who has stood up in a public court and said she was never my wife, and there is no coming back from it. And she said, I know, and she went. She sued you. She had to sue somebody, and I'm the one that's living. He wiped his face with a large handkerchief. I've entered no defense. My proctor near wept. I told him I've been a corn factor 40 year, and I know the difference between a thing I've bought and a thing I've been handed by a man who owed me money. Selina came in at 4 and stayed 11 minutes and stood the whole time. I have one thing to say to you, she said, and then we will not speak again until the court. Selina at Marleigh, I know what you did at Marl. That is what I have come to say. Her chin was up. I did not go to Wexbury for you. You will want to think I did, and I am not going to let you. On the 14th of January, you stood in a room with 400 people in it and told them all what I was, and you did it in the one voice I would have taken any other sentence in the world from. And I went home and I sat up all night, and somewhere about 4 in the morning, I found that I could not go on being the thing you had just called me for one more week, and that if the whole county was going to have an opinion about me, then the opinion had better be founded on a fact. She stopped. So I went and got the fact, and I got it by myself, and I paid for it by myself, and when it is over I want that understood by everybody including you. It is understood, said Gareth. Good. Selina, I will spend the rest of my life. Yes, she said, you will, but not this week. Kitty came at 9 that night. She came in without knocking, with her hair wet, carrying a tin box the size of a loaf of bread against her chest with both arms, and she put it on the table between the three of them and stood back from it as though it might go off. That is the whole of it, she said. Nobody moved. Open it, said Selina. Kitty could not, so Gareth did. They were tied in 4 bundles with tape, and there were 31 of them, and they were addressed in his own hand to Miss Selina Marsh at the house of Mr. Josiah Crewe, Netherlyn, and they had come from Lisbon and Oporto, and one from a place he could not now remember the name of, and every seal on every one of them had been broken and folded flat again. Where? Said Selina, in a voice with nothing in it at all. In his bureau, the long drawer under the japanned box with the seals in it. Kitty's hands were over her mouth. The 28th of August in the year 14. The clock in the Grange bookroom ticked 11 times. The 28th of August, said Selina. Yes. I was married on the 4th of September. Yes, said Kitty, 9 days. She got the rest of it out in pieces, standing in the middle of the carpet, with Bicknell looking at his boots and Gareth holding the edge of the table. She had been sent for the seal wax. She had opened the wrong drawer. She had known the hand at once, from the flyleaf of a prayer book, and she had stood in her uncle's book-room with 31 letters in her 2 hands and done the arithmetic that a girl of 20 does in about 4 minutes. The mortgage on their mother's house had been called in, and the sale was fixed for the 16th. The letters were 2 and 3 years old, and the last of them was 14 months old, and the man who wrote them had been in a return of officers dead. Mr. Bicknell was a good man and would pay off the house and take them both, and her sister had cried once, in the January of the year 12, and never again. And I thought, said Kitty, that if I put them on the table, I should be handing her a dead man and a burnt register and no roof. And I put them in my apron and I went upstairs, and I have not slept a whole night since. And every day for 11 months I have got up and said today, and every day I have gone to bed and not. You were cited, said Gareth, in November to the court. Yes. Why did you not come? Kitty looked at the floor. Because Uncle came to me on the 24th and sat down in my room, she said, and told me that if I stood up in a box the first question the other side would ask me would be when I first saw those letters, and that I should have to answer it on my oath, in a public court, out loud, and that Selina would be sitting 11 feet away. Bicknell said something under his breath that Gareth did not catch, and never asked about. Selina had not moved. She was looking at the tin box. 9 days, she said. Yes. You had them 9 days, and you stood in my uncle's parlor on the 4th of September and held my flowers. Yes, said Kitty, I did. It went on a long time, that silence. Gareth has said since that he would rather have gone back under the wall at the siege than stand in a room while those two women looked at each other across a tin box. Then Selina crossed the carpet and picked it up, and held it against herself the way her sister had carried it in. "Give me a moment," she said, "because I am not going to say the wrong thing to you and then have to live with it." She stood there with her eyes shut. "You were 20, she said at last. "There were 3 of us in that house, and one of us had the keys, and it was not either of us. I am not going to pretend it did not happen, and I am not going to pretend I do not mind, because I shall mind about it when I am 70. Her voice cracked, and she carried straight on through it. "And you have been carrying that box up and down stairs for 11 months, and lying awake in the room next to mine, and you have brought it here tonight with your own hands when nobody made you. So come and sit down, Kitty. Come and sit down." The cause was set down at Wexbury for the 22nd of February. "He will put you in the box," Gareth said to Kitty the next morning in the cold garden, "and the first thing he asks you will be the date." "I know." "He will make it the whole of the case. He will say you concealed it, and that a woman who concealed it for 11 months will swear to anything, and he will do it in front of your sister and about 90 people from 4 parishes." "I know what he will do," said Catherine Marsh. "He told me himself sitting on my bed in November." She pulled her shawl up. "Let him ask me. I shall tell them." The consistory court at Wexbury sat on the 22nd of February, in a stone chamber off the south transept that holds about 100, and had 140 in it. Selina's proctor took 90 minutes, and did not raise his voice once. He put in the exemplification under seal. He called the clerk from the registry loft, who told the court, in a flat voice, and with his ears going red, where the skin had been found, and in whose bundle, and why. That the covering letter had come up in the Crowborn bag in the November of the year 11, and that the clerk of that year had filed the skin where the bag came from, and had died in the same 12-month. He then required the deputy registrar to stand up and say aloud, in open court, that the certificate given twice under the seal of that registry, that no transcript of the parish of Netherland for the year 11 had ever been received, was wrong, that it had always been wrong, and that the document had been in that building, 11 miles from the parish, for 3 years and 3 months. The judge made him say it twice. Then Kitty went into the box. She identified her own signature on the exemplified copy in the hand of a girl of 17, and she said the 9th of May in the year 11 with her chin up. And then the other side had her, and the very first question was the date. "Miss Marsh, when did you first see the letters produced in this cause?" The whole room heard her take the breath. "On the 28th of August, in the year 1814, said Catherine Marsh. "In my uncle's bureau, in the long drawer under the japanned box, 9 days before my sister was married at that house to Mr. Bicknell. I put them in my apron, and I took them upstairs, and I said nothing to anybody for 11 months. Nobody in that court made a sound. "And why, Miss Marsh, did you say nothing?" "Because I was 20 years old, sir, and our mother's house was to be sold on the 16th, and the man who wrote those letters was in a return of officers dead, and I thought that if I laid them on the table I should be giving my sister a corpse and a burnt register, and no roof." Her voice was going, and she did not stop. "It was the worst thing I have ever done, and I did it in about 4 minutes, and I have had 11 months to think about it. And I brought that box down the stairs myself on the 3rd of February, and nobody made me. Ask me anything you like, sir. I have already said the worst of it out loud, and there is nothing left in me for you to get at." The proctor asked her 4 more questions and sat down. After that it went quickly, in the way these things do once the ground has moved. Sergeant Dobbs and his black book, 31 letters, 31 dates, and the dates agreed with the postmarks on the covers to within a fortnight all the way through. The keeper of the receiving house at Marl, who had been shown the letters on the 11th of February and had turned them over and gone white, and who now told the court that the ink figure on the corner of every one of them was the mark of the Netherland bag, that he had made a great many of those marks with his own hand, and that he would swear to it before the Lord Chancellor if required. Every seal on every letter broken and folded flat. Josiah Crew was in the third row, and when his name had been said for the 9th time, the judge looked over his spectacles and observed that the matter of the letters was not for that court, but was very much for the magistrates, and that he would be sending the papers to them. And Crew went out at the side before the sentence, and was out of the county by the end of March, and the parish of Netherland has not seen him since. Then the judge asked Mr. Bicknell formally whether he opposed the suit. Bicknell got up on his own 2 feet, which took a while. "I do not oppose it, my lord. I've entered no defense, and I'll not enter one." He put his hand on the rail. "And since I'll not get another chance to speak in a court, I'll say the rest of it. She never told me one lie in 11 months. She'd have kept my house till I was carried out of it if that skin had stayed in the wrong bundle, and she'd have done it kindly. And I knew from the spring that she wasn't mine, and I said nothing, because I liked having her at my table. There's not a man in this room can say as much of his own wife with his hand up. That's all, my lord." The court pronounced at 10 minutes past 3. The marriage of the 4th of September in the year 14 null and void, by reason of a prior subsisting marriage, and the marriage solemnized at Netherland on the 9th of May in the year 11 good, valid, and subsisting, and so to be entered. Selina stood up when it was read and did not cry, and afterwards told her husband that she had used all of it up in a loft in January. The county assembly at Marl met again on the 11th of March. Gareth had the master of ceremonies stop the music. He stood in the middle of that floor on his stick, in the same room, under the same 400 candles, in front of a great many of the same people. "On the 14th of January, in this room," he said, "I said to a woman standing by that third window, 'I had understood you to be practical, ma'am. You were practical enough in the 3rd year, and I did not suppose 800 a year would offend you. I supposed it might only be short.' He let it sit there. I have said it again so that nobody has to remember it wrongly. It was said by me, in drink, after a man had spent 6 months getting me ready to say it, and it was said to a woman who had been lied to by every single person on this earth who owed her the truth, and who then got into a public coach with £9, and spent 4 days on her knees in an unheated loft, at half a crown a day, proving what I could not prove with 11,000 acres and 2 attorneys. Somebody at the back began to applaud and was hushed, and then was not. I am not asking this room to forgive me. It was not this room's to forgive. I am asking it to remember which of the 2 of us was practical. He got the whole floor. Even Gareth admitted afterwards when Selina made him that he had got the whole floor. 5 years on. They were never married again, there being nothing to mend. But the 9th of May is kept at Camberholt as other houses keep a birthday, and there is a stone bench cut into the wall of the porch at Netherland, put there by the Duke's order for anybody at all who wants to sit down out of the rain. The knee is the knee. It will not bend past a right angle. It aches for 2 days before weather, and there is no cure, and there never was. He walks the home farm on it most mornings with a stick and a dog, and gets up his own staircase. And the one thing that will still make him savage is a person waiting hopefully at the bottom of it. Mr. Bicknell is 61 and has the gout in both feet and will not be helped out of a chair. He dines at Camberholt every Sunday, argues with the Duke about corn until the candles are low, and calls the Duchess, Your Grace, in a particular voice, entirely to make her laugh, which it always does. Kitty took 2 years. Selina says that is about right and would not have believed anybody who told her at the time. She married the registry clerk from Wexbury, the one who carried his own bread and cheese up to a cold loft for 4 days, and would not take a shilling for the telling of it afterwards. And they have the little house on the green at Netherlyn, and she comes up to Camberholt on Wednesdays, and the tin box is on her mantelpiece with the tape still round the letters, because Selina gave it back to her and told her to keep it where she could see it. She is not being cruel, Kitty tells people who ask. She is being exact. It is how she loves anybody. And on the 9th of May, whatever the weather, the Duke and Duchess of Camberholt walk down to the porch at Netherlyn and sit on the stone bench for an hour, the 2 of them, with the Ouse dripping if it is wet and the swifts going over if it is fine. And they do not say a great deal, because after everything there is not a great deal that needs saying.